Because we all share a little bit about our story. I'll share a little bit about mine. First off, that's my smoking hot wife, Cammy, in the back. Hi, how are you? Keep an eye on your watch for, give me 10 minutes, and hopefully I'll get under that. So some of you know me from podcasting. I do a show called The Big Show. I've been doing it since 2005 or 6. I think it's 5. And was going along, hitting that hard, and then 2008 hit, and went through losing a job, and then 10 days later, lost the marriage, and so I'm a little crazy. And kind of got out of podcasting for a while. In fact, I apologize to anybody that had a couple casts during that time, because unfortunately, when you're going through a divorce, the last thing you want to hear about is happy marriages and everybody being all happy. So I stepped away from it, tried to step a little bit back in a year or two later, and I've been off and on. I've been doing podcasting, but it's not been something that's been a big part of my day-to-day. What has changed for me, though, is I started to learn and discover photography and how much I love it. My wife will be the first to tell you that when I take a shot that I know is going to be amazing, I go, ooh, I get excited. It's really something that I love. And in the process of learning photography, I first started off on Photoshop and trying to learn that, and that's a daunting experience. Has anybody learned Photoshop? Okay. It's like the human brain. You can learn as much as you want out of it, and you get maybe 20 pages into a book. And the rest of it is completely beyond your scope. You don't use it. That's stuff that some illustrators use. I, for the life of me, couldn't tell you how to cut somebody in and out of a photo. It's not something I know how to do.
Wow, that's about the only thing I know how to do.
Okay.
We need to talk.
Yeah, Photoshop is a great program. It's also a very expensive program. And Adobe in the last year has come up with what they call the Creative Cloud. They're trying to move you off of buying a product to renting a product. And Microsoft is kind of going this way with some of their stuff. It's really becoming the wave of the future for software. I don't particularly like it because it means you never really own anything, but I do like the fact that when you buy the Creative Cloud, you get a constantly updated product. I'm on Lightroom 4. 5 has already come out. 6 will be out probably by the time the rest of us in Arizona go, oh my God, could we get this heat to go away? Usually about September is when you start hearing about the next edition of whatever program they have. So in learning Photoshop and learning how to do things, I learned that it is a great program, but it's not fast. It's really great if you want to eliminate somebody out of the photo, or you want to do really heavy editing, but it sucks if you want to do just color correction. Yes, there is a feature called Adobe Camera Raw, which is and I'll show you, it's actually built into Lightroom. Lightroom is built off of Adobe Camera Raw. If you don't use Camera Raw and you have Photoshop, change that today, because that is a blessing. So in learning that, I kept hearing over and over and over in the world of photography, especially on a website. Does anybody use or go to Creative Live? Okay.
Yes.
Creative Live is a website that they teach photography, and they've moved on to some other stuff too. They have business tutorials, and they've got brand marketing, and all sorts of things. And their classes usually run the course of a couple days, 2 or 3 days, depending on who's speaking. Sometimes it's even just a day. If you watch it live, it's absolutely free. And I've built entire weekends around watching certain photographers that I admire. If you want to buy it, it's $100 if you buy it that weekend, and you own it forever. It's yours to keep. And I think it's a fantastic thing to do. Just for reference, though, I do need to say that I am not part of Creative Live, so when I say that, I'm saying it just as a personal reference, not as a, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of money. They don't know who I am. other than I'm the guy that won an iPad off of him. So one thing I kept hearing over and over and over and over is, oh, Lightroom, so great, so great. And I thought, what the hell is this Lightroom? And you go on Adobe's website, and they don't do a very good job of telling you what Lightroom is. They tell you it's a cataloging program. I don't need a cataloging program. I have Photoshop for that. I can find all my photos. And then one day, when I was at my regular day job, somebody gave me a gift certificate to Best Buy. And every November, I also sell calendars. So I had a bunch of money coming in from that. It's really my only source of income for photography. I'm not a wedding shooter. I'm not a people shooter. I do photography of people, but not very often. So my big thing is places, plants, that kind of thing. Arizona's wonderful for that. It's a great place to be. So in getting the money together to do that, I bought Lightroom 4, and I started to learn it. And I found that this thing is so much easier to use. And I started to learn a couple different things that Lightroom does that Photoshop doesn't. And I was able to go building up a pretty giant catalog. I mean, that's almost 10,000 photos. I have them all cataloged, ready to find. I can keynote them. So I know exactly where every photo that I need. If I want to find birds, I type in bird, bam, there it is. I have not been as good as I should be on that, but I usually put them under some sort of title. Down here you'll see that they're by date. That's because this is my owning a decent camera and knowing how to do what I'm doing days. But I also, put in titles of things. Like if I go to a place, I'll put in McDowell Mountain, March 2013. So let's talk about some differences between Lightroom and Photoshop, and then I will show you some of the features of Lightroom. If you're here because you want to learn the ins and outs of Lightroom and you want to come out of this room and you know everything, I'm sorry, we just don't have enough time for that. That's a couple hours, and unfortunately I only get 50 minutes. Shame on them. So, as I mentioned, Lightroom is Adobe's photo cataloging software. It's designed for what I refer to as a heavy shooter. That means somebody that shoots somewhere between 75 beyond photos. So, in the case of when Cammie and I went to Northern California, we were up there for 5 days. I shot 1,300 photos. You need a cataloging software to do that, because you need some way to sort these photos out so that you don't spend all of your time trying to figure out which ones you want and which ones you don't. Photoshop is not very good at that. Yes, it'll save your photos, but it's not efficient for you to go through and find the good ones, pull those aside, put them off on their own, and then start working on them. It offers some editing functionality, but it's limited on what it can do. Some people will tell you, oh, I can do everything that Photoshop can do. I can tell you that that is nonsense. It can do some, but if you are looking to do things like remove a person completely out of a photo, that's not going to be the program for you. It requires that you become a better shooter, that you be efficient with your shots, that you take that half second to look through your viewfinder and see, oh, there is a circus clown standing behind a really beautiful photo of a husband and wife, and I don't want the circus clown there, so I should wait for him to move past. Oh, now he's gone. Click. Just like he did.
I have a question. So I'm a beginner, and I mainly use my iPhone, so I'm not a real photographer. I'm a food
Bullshit.
blogger.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, and that's why I'm asking the question, because I don't want to sit in here if I'm not the person that should be here. So is it for somebody like me?
Sure.
Okay.
It works best with what's called RAW. That's a format of photos that comes out. You, on your iPhone, will shoot JPEG. Yes, you can edit on JPEGs. It's a little harder to do, especially for things like white balance. So if you were to shoot in this room, your camera might say, oh, white balance should be this, And when you're going through it, you might find that it actually should be something else. RAW is basically completely uncompressed format. It comes out, sometimes the colors are a little drab, sometimes it's flat. And that's where editing software comes in, because then you can bring life back into the photo. And you then control how it looks. I'm a big believer in getting as much control over your photos as you can. The camera only knows so much. You have a much, much bigger brain than your camera does, and you're so much more smarter than your camera is. Your camera only sees light. You see everything. So, as she was talking about with Lightroom, some of the adjustments that you can make is white balance. You can do color correction. If you need to remove a spot that was on your lens, Lightroom does that great. I had somebody, embarrassing story, I shot a photo of a friend of mine who does, she teaches people stretching techniques. And she was wearing a pair of really tight pants that had a seam going right up the crotch. I didn't notice it. So when all these photos come back and she's looking at it and she sends a couple off to her friends, they go, "Oh, that's a really cool line up your crotch." Well, I had to go in and edit that, and I used Lightroom to do that. It basically took a section of an area right around where that would be that didn't have that line and basically painted it into the area that it was supposed to be. So a couple other differences is the price. Lightroom, to get into it, is $150 unless you go into Creative Cloud. And Creative Cloud has added one feature which I am so glad that they did. It's Photoshop and Lightroom together, $10 a month. Not too bad. So if you're looking for a cheap way to get into it, that is one way. You don't own the product. You're basically renting it out every month. But over time, it will definitely cost you more than buying it straight up. If you buy Lightroom, the further editions as it currently stands are about $80. It's not too bad. Photoshop, as of the last iteration of it, was $600. A little harder to get into. And that's really where the professional photographers were going for a long time. But you start talking to pros now and they'll tell you that Lightroom is the way to go. I already talked about that that Photoshop is designed for heavier lifting. It's designed for bigger editing projects. And Lightroom can do more of the smaller stuff, and if you become a better shooter, it's much, much easier to use Lightroom than Photoshop. When I mentioned that I did 1,300 photos in a trip, it took me about 45 minutes to go through all of them. To pick out the ones that I wanted, put those aside, and ignore the rest. If I was to do that on Photoshop, it'd probably take me about 3 hours. So if you're looking for something that's going to save you time, Lightroom is your friend to do that. Lightroom also has a couple features on it that I think are kind of cool. You'll see up here it says map. That geotags your photos. So if your camera doesn't geotag them, you can actually geotag them yourself. Hold the map, pin it, and now you know exactly where that shot was, or some close resemblance to it. Also, you'll see where it says book. That's for creating photo books. And it has built in the functionality. You can create a template, put all your photos in it, and send it off. I think it's to a company called Blurb. And they will then send you back, after you, of course, pay them, a copy of a book with all your photos in it. Photoshop doesn't do that currently. The biggest feature of Lightroom that I want to leave upon you is non-destructive editing. When I make a change to this photo, if I crop it, and I'll show you all this stuff in just a minute. If I crop it and I decide to enhance this, maybe change the exposure, if I decide 6 weeks from now that I don't like that, or I want to take the crop out, I can do that. If I do that on Photoshop, the second I hit save, done. Whatever's here is here, and I'm stuck with it unless I kept the original photo, and then I have to go back through it and edit everything again to my liking. Lightroom doesn't do that. Changes are only made on a surface level. I can save that photo into a JPEG format, but this still exists. The original is still there. It hasn't changed. So,
When you're doing that, like with what I have on my computer, I find myself duplicating so that I can go back if I don't like what comes out. Are you still duplicating, or are you still just pulling up that original file?
the original file is still here. Any edits that you made will be there, but you can go in and actually take those out.
Okay.
So if you wanted to remove a crop, if you wanted to, maybe change, you thought maybe, okay, I made this a little too dark. I just had to do that actually because I'm working on the
So
calendar
each
for
time
this
you
year.
make a change, whether it's from your original or for something after you're not having to continually make a copy
Correct.
and keep going back and forth.
Now there are instances that you can make a copy and should. For example, I took a photo in Northern California of this father and son looking at a train. I like it in color, I love it in black and white. So I created what they call a virtual copy, exact same photo. Now I can go to this virtual copy and I can edit all I want. And it works just fine. No problem at all.
Can I ask an incredibly stupid question?
Is she allowed to ask stupid questions?
There are no stupid questions.
Okay,
This
well,
is pretty stupid.
see, that's the boss.
Thank you. Backing up a little bit to the cataloging system, I own Lightroom 4. I love it for editing. It is my best friend. I get a lot of the editing. I can't find my photos.
You can't find them?
No, because I'll pull it up from my hard drive or wherever, my camera, and I'll edit and I'll make it all pretty. And then if I don't like it or if I have to go and I go to another photo, I can't find that photo. So I do not get the cataloging system at all. And I do one at a time because I can't figure out. I can't.
Okay. That has a lot to do with how you import the photos. So when you stick in an SD card, Lightroom will automatically pop up and go, oh, hey.
It does not.
Okay, then there's probably something in your settings.
Okay.
That I have to look up on
But that gives me a direction, so I appreciate it.
But it's, when you import it, you're going to see, I was going to bring my memory card that has a bunch of new photos on it, but it also has a bunch of photos from the trip I just took. So I thought, okay, I could spend 15 minutes waiting for this thing to go through all of them, or I could kind of use an idea.
Yeah.
So a box will pull up, it will show you all your photos, and over here, it's going to give you a long line of stuff that you can do with it.
Right?
One of the things that it has is the ability to, when you import them, you can set a preset for everything.
Correct?
So the same changes can be made across multiple photos. That's another thing Photoshop doesn't really allow you to do. If I have 7 photos of a family, they're all in the same place, they're all doing somewhat different poses, but they all look exactly the same. I mean, they're wearing the same clothes. It's the same lighting because they took it within minutes of each other. It's the same background. Why do I need to go through this photo and edit, and this photo and edit, when I can say, okay, this is overexposed. I'm now going to take all 7 of these photos and I'm going to change the exposure level on all of them, all at once. The other thing you can do is when you have the importing done with the presets, I do a thing that I use called color pop. So I like my photos to be very vivid because I don't tend to take a lot of photos of people. I take a lot on flowers and mountains and that kind of thing. I need those colors to come out. So that's the very first thing that's done when the photos are imported. It's very, very handy. What time are we at here?
20 after.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step in the back of the room and I'm going to kind of talk you through some of these different screens, and I'll show you a little bit of what they do. Going into the heavier stuff of, okay, how do I do this one specific thing? Again, I probably don't have a ton of time to go over it. I would encourage you to go to Creative Live. There are at least 20 different classes that I'm aware of that are on Lightroom. One of them is done by a gentleman by the name of Jared Platt. He speaks in clear English. Not all photographers do that, especially ones that are teaching you something very technical. Often they go, okay, you did this, and by the time you figured out anything, he's on to the next thing. Jared goes very, very slow. He's a step-by-step kind of guy. And I've had multiple sessions with him, so you might want to look him up. And he also does sell presets. I encourage you that if you get into Lightroom, you can create your own preset. What a preset is it is a standard that's set changing the white balance across all photos. So when you click a button, all the photos are changed to that white balance. You can change the exposure across all your photos that you use that particular preset on. There are a lot of photographers out there that sell their own. Some are better than others. I use one that's from a company called Pretty Presets. Not too expensive for a set of about 20 of them. They're like $30. Sometimes you get them on sale. And they do a fantastic job and they make things much, much quicker. And I'll show you how the presets work. So let me step back here. I'm kind of the weirdo in the back of the room.
Just like this. Yeah. It's the easier to see.
Yeah, it is.
All right, if anybody's holding your hand, that's not me. All right. So this is a photo that I actually took the day before I got married. I was at the Desert Botanical Garden. And you'll notice on here that there is a bee sitting right about here. But it's not very noticeable. So I actually edited a different photo, and you'll see that he kind of comes out a little bit more, even more, right there. Boom. But I didn't really like this original one because you'll notice right up here, there's some steel grating. I'm not a big fan of that being in the photo, and I didn't think that I put enough emphasis on it. So this first screen here, this is your library. This is where all of your photos are going to be, and you'll see there's a whole catalog of them, and it'll show you how many photos you have in each. I also create a separate folder on most of these for the JPEGs. So like right there, there's my honeymoon photos that I've sorted out of 754 photos. I found 91 that I liked. Had I been even more selective, it probably would have been down more towards 60, but you don't want to get rid of all your honeymoon photos. You want good stuff, right? I just got rid of anything incriminating, that's all. So the library page, you'll notice on the right-hand side there's a thing that says Quick Develop. A lot of people, when they first open up Lightroom, they go here to make their edits, when they want to change the contrast or the exposure. I encourage you not to do that because they tend to go in steps. Like here, your exposure will decrease by 1/3 of a stop. Well, what if you want to be a little bit more in control of that, or if 1/3 of a stop is a little more than you want it to go. You want to go just a tiny bit down on the exposure scale. So I tend not to use this section. Where I go to make my edits is under Develop. And this is where things get awesome. Assuming my computer will pull it up. Come on. There we go. So now there's my photo, and I'm only dealing with it on a 1-to-1 basis here. And if I want to go ahead and make a change, let me pull up this side window here. I crop. So I can crop it down. I can get that metal braid out of the equation. Pull this in a little bit. Pull this in a little bit. And now I'm dealing with just the bee. If I don't like the exposure, I'll take it down a little bit. And let's say I want to pump up the color a little bit. I can do that. I can do that a lot, which would actually be way too much. Maybe just a little bit. Give it a little bit of a pop. And for the lady that asked about iPhones, I think even if you were to use a program like Photoshop Elements, using a function like this, using Camera Raw, where you can take these sliders and make some fine adjustments to it. Every photo that we take, it basically comes out a little bit less than what you actually saw from your naked eye. I'm sure you've taken probably 100 photos of your kids. They're wearing a really bright blue shirt, and it came out kind of washed out. You can actually change that by using editing software. I recommend Lightroom because I think it's the most efficient way to do it. It might be a little bit of overkill for somebody who's not very serious into photography. If you go to a park and take 20 pictures of your kids and that's really all you do, Lightroom 4 might be a little bit of an overkill. If you take 100 photos, Lightroom is your best friend. As she mentioned, it's a wonderful program to have.
Love it.
Yeah.
I use it for food.
This would be awesome for you.
Oh yeah.
I'll talk to you after.
Yeah,
I know exactly, I read the back of your shirt.
Oh,
I know what she's up to.
So let me take another photo and I'll show you even a little more of an example, and I think you'll see it a little more clear because yellow has its own unique pop to it. Let's see if I can find it here. These are some photos that my wife loves tulips, and
It's a really nice shot.
thank you. I thought, I'll be the good husband and go out and get some tulips, and then my camera said, "Psst, look at me." So I took this photo. I think it's okay. I don't like the background behind it. I don't think that's all that snazzy, but I think that the photo itself is fine. I wouldn't put it in a calendar, so if you're looking for this in the 2014 calendar, you won't find this particular photo. So I didn't really do much in the way of editing. You'll notice that the temperature, that's been set by the camera itself. That's how it came out. Tint is exactly the same way as it came out. This is exactly as it came, what we call SOC, straight out of camera, SOOC. So when I go in here, I want you to pay attention to a couple things. First off, you'll notice that I'm able to make a slight, tiny bit of adjustment to the exposure. I don't really need to worry about the highlights and the shadows because there's nothing that's really blowing the photo out. I could probably take a little bit of the shadows out of it, but I'm going to leave it as it is. But now watch the purple on the flower. See how that gets? Yeah, and it really, really brings out a lot of the color in there. So let me move down to here, and you'll notice that some of these photos have an outline, a white outline around them, and some of them don't. The reason that is let's say I go to this photo. As I'm going through all of these, I'm looking at them on a one-to-one basis, and I make a very quick decision as I'm going through the photos. I take probably 3 to 4 seconds per photo as I'm looking through them and trying to determine whether I want to keep it or not. If I decide that I want to keep it, Lightroom makes that very easy for me. All I have to do is press P. See where it came up on the screen as flag as pick? And you'll see that there's now a little white border around there. Watch this. So any photo that I have picked, I can go through and I can filter them out. So now I only see the photos that I want. And now I'm spending my time editing just the photos that I want to spend time with. And some of them I'll go through. You know what? I'm not as fond of this photo as I am of this one. So if I press U, that takes it out of the equation entirely. So it's a very, very easy simple way to do things. The next screen is, and the rest of them I'm probably not going to go as deep into them because they're not ones that people use all that frequently. Some people like to geotag their photos, but I'm not a giant fan of it. It's not something I really care about because I put where I was in the library itself. I basically told myself where I was at, so I don't really need to geotag it. The book feature, again, this is where you can create photo books. It's where you put all the photos together, and it's a very simple way to put a Christmas gift together. Of course, now it's going to take forever to pull it up. Sorry. My computer's ancient.
I have a question about the, when you don't pick them, they're still somewhere out there on your computer. What
Unless I remove them entirely.
Okay, so there's a way where you can select all of your unpicked ones and just delete them so they're not taking up space?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you can delete them or you can remove them from the catalog. If you delete them, they're deleted off your computer. They're gone. If you remove them, they don't show up in Lightroom at all.
Where do they reside then?
In the original folder that you uploaded them to. So when you go into the library and you're importing them, you're basically telling them, okay, I want all these photos to be in this folder. So I've got a folder that basically goes documents, photos. I think I started off with Kodak photos, so everything goes under there. And then it goes to Dobbins Point, March 2015. So that's where it would exist on the computer. It's just cataloged on here under Dobbins Point. Get back to the book. So let's say, for example, I wanted to create a photo book. This one's a little bit extensive, 240 pages.
That's a real book.
Yeah, that's you know, I should actually contact Faye and see if she'd want to do something like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. This is the person that I took the photo of that I accidentally left the line in her crotch.
Oh, okay.
I would love to say that I'm a perfect photographer, but I'm not. So you get several different templates and things of that nature. You can sort through the photos and put in whatever you want, whatever you don't want. Makes it very easy. Slideshow, if you ever go into photography and you want to create a slideshow for a website, this is a great way to do it. So you'll put in several different photos and you can basically put it in any order that you want. You can change how they transition. I don't really know a lot of people that use this particular function. It's not something that tends to excite a lot of people, or there's websites that'll do it for you, that'll create a slideshow for you. The print feature, pretty self-explanatory. If you're printing out professional photos, this is the way to do it. You can make sure that everything looks exactly as it's supposed to as it prints out. Often what happens is when people go through the process of printing out photos at home, they don't look quite like you expected them to. So this is going to get you as close to what your printer is capable of. It actually reads off your printer. It knows exactly how it prints things out and makes them look exactly the way that they come off. So when you pull that piece of paper off and you're looking at it exactly the way it's supposed to be. And then of course you have for creating a web gallery. Again, a lot of websites out there, Wix is one of them, will create a gallery for you. So I don't know a lot of people that use this particular function. Most of the work that's done, at least on my level, is here and here. This photo originally was color. I didn't shoot it in black and white. Anybody know where Dobbins Point is?
South Phoenix?
Huh?
South Phoenix?
Yep, it's up on South Mountain. Great place to go watch a sunset. That's exactly what these two were doing. I didn't like the sunset that day. It was kind of bland, so this photo didn't really do much for me as far as the sunset is concerned. But I thought as far as looking at the scope of the city, works great. So we've got about 15 minutes left before they kick me out of here and tell me never to come back. Does anybody have any questions about Lightroom? I know I went through it really fast.
So, yeah, I'm getting ready to stop, because my brother was telling me he doesn't use, what is it, iPhoto, and I was using that, so it's, some of the features are the same, so can you compare, like, so that I can get my mind right? I see it, but in terms of usage, have you used iPhoto?
Well, I have on the iPad. I haven't on the desktop because I have a PC, so I haven't used.
Oh, okay.
I haven't used iPhoto. So I really can't compare the two other than what I've seen on the iPad.
So resizing, can you do all of that here too?
Sure can. One kind of cool thing that you can do is, you'll see in the library here, it says export. I can export photos that I've edited directly to Facebook. And in the process of exporting, let's just pull that up, I can go through and pull up Facebook if I want to, or I can create JPEGs of it. This is where I would do that. So I create a special folder for them, right here. That's where all the JPEGs are going to go. I can rename them if I want, and if I want to try and keep people from stealing them and putting them up as their own, I can watermark them as well. Photoshop does a little better job with watermarking. It allows you to change size, placement, that kind of thing. So far, all I've been able to discover in Lightroom 4 is that it puts it in one place all the time, and it does it exactly the same way every time. It's a little bland and boring, but it's much, much faster. When I set these, this is done across the board on all photos. And it makes it much, much easier than to save them one by one. If you want to change size, there you go, right there. And you can do that across the board. I've had to do that recently. The site that I use, you may have heard about this in the keynote, is Lulu. That's where I go to create my calendars. And they only allow up to a certain size photos. So I have to go back through sometimes and resave them as, under JPEG, but also change the size, maxing it out here. Any other questions?
I just add that Apple doesn't expect you to use iPhoto for this type of stuff. They actually have their own competing product called Aperture. So so you wouldn't want to compare Lightroom to iPhoto. You'd want to compare it to Aperture.
What would be the closest to iPhoto? Would that be Photoshop Elements?
Probably, yeah. Although iPhoto has a lot, I'd say iPhoto has more features than Elements.
Okay.
But like a lot more library features.
Okay.
It's more of collecting and organizing your photos type of app than a.
So it has a little bit of the
a little bit of editing, but not a lot.
Right.
Okay.
And it's also, I find it very cumbersome when it comes to editing. Like it's nice for tagging people's faces and stuff like that, or location.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to do any editing, I'm opening.
Where
I
he
was
has
able
the
to get a
mouse,
cheap copy of Photoshop, so that's what
if
I
you go
use.
down to the right, those two, that one and that one, those are my two new best friends.
Yep.
And with food pictures, and all you have to do is Google or YouTube or, like you said, go to Creative Live and get the tutorials on those two.
Okay.
And that will give you so much more power over your food and your lighting, especially if something's incorrect. If you got something light here and dark here, it evens it out.
That's this thing that kind of looks like a magic wand on the right. It's basically a localized adjustment brush.
Correct. Yeah.
So I can paint into a certain area.
Yes, just into an area. So if
Once
you
I
need
do
to
that-
lighten something or darken it.
Wow.
It's
Yep.
awesome.
Then I can start playing around with the adjustment, the contrast, everything, just for that one area that I
And
did.
especially with the detail in your food. And
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of control for specific
Yeah.
things instead of the overall. You can do the overall picture, but those two, can give you a lot more control for
Okay.
the detail that I'm imagining. that you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
for.
definitely.
And I've edited a lot of JPEG and RAW, and it makes these so much better.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
So much better. I mean, he's right. It depends on where your eye is, and if you're new, you're not going to notice the difference between RAW and JPEG.
Yeah, I probably don't,
You know what I mean?
but I know
But it
that,
works.
yeah, I know kind of how I want the food to look because you want people to salivate more.
Correct. And this, I'm salivating just thinking about it. So you can, it's so much easier, like he was saying, it's so much easier than
Okay.
Photoshop. Photoshop is just such a bear,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
so
why I got
expensive.
it.
And this is a really
Okay.
awesome
What's-
program.
what
Other
does
than I can't find my
Lightroom run?
pictures.
What does Lightroom run?
150.
Oh, has it gone up?
But there is, and I was talking about this earlier. Adobe has started to move away from you owning a product. So they're moving into more of a rental basis with what they call the Creative Cloud. A lot of people, especially photographers, didn't jump into it right away because what Adobe did is they said, okay, if you want one program, that'll be $20, please. But if you want everything, that's $50. Well, I don't need Illustrator.
Right.
I don't need all these extra programs. So in the last couple of months, they just announced that they're going to have a set for just photographers. So it's Photoshop and Lightroom together, and I think if you order it by middle December, you can get it for $10 a month, and it stays that way forever.
Really?
Yeah. The minus, as I mentioned earlier, was you don't own the product. Then you've got it kind of under their wing, and if you decide you don't want to use it anymore, eventually you lose all the functionality.
But as they update, as Lightroom 5, 6, 7 comes
Exactly.
out,
It's automatic.
yeah, you get those.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know, in this case, this isn't the newest version of Lightroom. The newest one is 5. I really haven't investigated enough whether it's something that I really need to jump into. The basic stuff that I've read has said, not really. It wasn't as big of a jump as it was from Lightroom 3 to 4. 4 to 5, one thing that's kind of cool about it is it'll detect sensor dust. And it'll pull it all out for you and say, oh, you've got all these spots.
Nice.
So now you can go through and edit on multiple photos at the same time, get that sensor dust out of there.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm sure Tempe Camera's really happy about that.
What does?
Well, don't most current DSLRs come with sensor cleaner?
White here.
Yeah.
It's not perfect though.
No, okay. I'd say mine doesn't, so I know it's bad.
Basically all it does is it takes the mirror and just moves it back and forth a little bit.
It does like a vibrate.
Yeah, and it's supposed to kind of shed it off. But I've had situations where I've had a little tiny bit of dust that's gone on there,
Yeah, it's
and
very fun.
it's
On your-
kind of hard to get
On
rid
your
of.
Where's My Picture? I always upload mine to my hard drive first and I catalog.
I do too.
And then
I use
Because I can't figure out how to do that, so that's what I do.
in there.
And then I keep them on an
Take care
external
of it.
hard drive, so that it's not taking up the room on my
Wait,
hard
You wanna
drive.
show
So
them
from
more
there,
about
I
like
get
your
the
tagging
Lightroom,
and searching
and
for
the Lightroom is just a digital.
See,
It's like
that's- yeah.
a
Everything
phantom.
I read, it said, you know, keep them here,
It's
keep
not
them
a
somewhere
real,
else.
and then I export the
Well, yeah, because that's what I do.
to that folder as my edited.
Right,
the original.
and I use that on my desktop. You do it here? You're edited?
I edit my Lightroom edit. I mean, I move my Lightroom
Where's your
edits.
edited folder?
I move it to the original folder.
See, that's
So
what I
then
do.
in the
Okay,
original, you see
that's
the
what I
original
do.
and
Right.
the
See,
edits.
that's what I do.
And you can't find them?
Well, yeah, because that's the only way I can do it, but that's all on an external hard drive.
Okay.
So it's not taking up the room on my thing.
Yeah.
On here, I cannot find, like the most irritating thing with Lightroom,
You have the photos on an external drive?
I do.
When you go back in, is the external drive connected?
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm being very clear on what my problem is.
Okay.
Like, say, like, I was working on this picture.
That's all right, my therapist says I'm not very clear.
And then I decide, I'm not happy with it, maybe I'll see it later, or whatever, so I go to another picture.
Uh-huh.
Then in Lightroom, or say I go to my external hard drive, click it, and click this picture, it'll say, sorry, you've already uploaded this picture. And I can't find it on Lightroom. And it will not let me, from my external hard drive, bring up the same picture. I don't know if
So
that
it's
makes
all
sense.
there, and it is kind of, I think, hard to navigate
So I'm gonna have to
sometimes.
Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't.
But it's
that's
all
like-
right there under the catalog and folder.
So it's like you've already imported it, but you can't find it in Lightroom.
Yeah, like yeah. So
Is
say
it
like
possible you have one of those filters on?
no,
Okay.
When you import it,
because I'll just if I don't like the way I'm editing it, I just take everything off.
do you import it like this where you put in the name of the location?
No, I've never done that because I can't. Oh, not yeah, no. That, and then it's funny because on my local disk, I never see where my pictures are.
Okay.
My local disk, it only gives me like it doesn't even because I used to do kind of what she did, where I would put it in iPhoto
Uh-huh.
and then bring it over, but my local disk wouldn't give me the choice of iPhoto. It just said photos and not iPhoto. So then I'm like, well, what the heck? Where's my photos? And it's like, cause
So
I just cheated it. I just go around.
when you're importing them, are you starting with Lightroom or are you starting with a different program?
Oh no! Now I just put them in. I put them in my external hard drive and then bring them in one by one.
Okay.
I know I can get a bunch in there if I wanted to, but I usually don't. I like to do one at a time because I'm
Okay.
weird.
Well, no, it's not weird. It's not efficient though. If you're doing them one by one, you're
I'm not a professional photographer.
Don't have to
If
be.
it's auto glass, so it's usually I'm only doing one
okay.
picture for a. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's.
Lightroom would be helpful, but
No, I own it. I love it.
Okay.
So you just drag your photo in then? Okay. Yeah, so you want to use that import right there.
I've done that too, but I still.
If you use that-
I'd have to show you an example of what I'm saying because I'm not being clear on what
Okay,
my problem
because when
is.
you use that and you
See,
find
now
your
if I wanted to find that picture right now, I could. I would try to pull it from my hard drive, and it would say, "Ooh, Lightroom detects you've already uploaded this." I'm like, "Well, that's great, but
yeah,
I don't know where it is." And then I'll look over there to the left. There's nothing there.
that to the left is what
There's
is
nothing
either
there.
your hard drive
That's
or
why I wonder
your.
if it is a setting issue because there's
Yeah.
not there. I do not have folders. I do not have pictures. I do not.
Because
have
that should be
anything.
your whole computer.
That's what
like,
I've read, but it doesn't
Huh.
happen on my. And my computer, like my external hard drive, doesn't show up there. My my desktop doesn't show up there, and my edited folder does not show up there.
Yeah, that's weird.
And it's
Have you tried reinstalling Lightroom?
no, because I bought it online.
Um,
Yeah, but I'm gonna look at
But you don't
settings.
have
I think
to-
settings might be a good place to start. Or I just continue doing what I do.
Even if you bought it online, I think you can deregister it and then you can re-register. So go to Adobe's website and see about that.
Can't you update it and maybe, repair it, so.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a weird. I'm like, it's the dumbest thing.
that's
Because everything else is awesome, but I can't find the stupid fuck.
sounds like there's some sort of corruption or something.
Yeah,
going on
it's
there.
weird.
It's not listing your sources.
Because I'm like, well, it should be from every tutorial I've read. It should just be right here to the left. And I've never been able to find one photo. That's why I do what you said, and I just keep them all.
Yes.
That way I know where to go.
Okay, I have some business cards if you guys want to take
Awesome.
them.
Thanks, sir.
Great.
Thank you so much. Lightroom for you, thank you.
Because I do practice, and it's like, I'm always so obvious. More fun than. Food!
I know, I'm excited.
Yes.
That's why I came to this one. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I was actually, and I thought it was just me as a beginner. And then my brother was like, I don't even use that because he's a Mac user. He was like, I don't use that. I was like, well, what do you do? I didn't know. Just like I was doing iMovie, and now I finally have Photo Adobe. I have Final Cut because I was doing my own video. You know,
And I changed it so much from what I thought it was.
well, Final Cut, when I moved to Final Cut, it was easier than what I was doing in iMovie. And I was like, okay. Yeah, so because I was doing a lot of that, so I'm excited. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, Final Cut, so.
Well, I hope you find your pictures.